Every CEO's journey has its Everest. The moments when the path forward feels steep, uncertain, and alone. With Sherpa CEO coaching, you don't climb alone. Our experienced coaches are your guides, helping you break through barriers, sharpen your strategy, strengthen your leadership, and build a team that can carry you higher. With tailored one-on-one coaching, strategic planning, and real accountability, your summit is within reach. Sherpa CEO Coaching, your guide to confidence, clarity, and extraordinary business growth. Get coached and learn more at sherpaceo.com.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey with your host, Dave Westcott. The Entrepreneurial Journey is a weekly podcast that streams live every Tuesday at 9:15 a.m. Pacific on Dave's YouTube channel and LinkedIn profile. Now here's Dave with this week's episode.
Good morning and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey. I'm your host, Dave Westcott, and I have with me this morning special guest, Phil Neal, CEO, Founders Compass, founder and general partner of Phil Neal Ventures. Phil, good morning.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good morning.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing outstanding. It's a beautiful day. I always love talking with somebody who has exited a business for 8 figures, $70 million in revenue. What an achievement. Congratulations on all you've done, all you've built, and everything that must have gone into that. I'm sure that it wasn't always easy as you scaled up that path.
Absolutely. It's been quite the show. And I mean, the behind the scenes of scaling and setting a business are not what people imagine. It's a real emotional roller coaster. It's like a Netflix series, and often, at least in my case, because it happened during COVID. So it was a very turbulent time.
Are you saying it's not all steak and lobsters?
And afterwards, you get a few, but meanwhile, you just get stress.
You know, I love the transparency that you shared. One of the things I was just going through in your bio was that, yes, you built this beautiful business and you had this wonderful exit, but behind the scenes, behind the headlines, you said, I felt like an imposter. I felt burdened, and you felt like, you know, this was just, is this really me or whatnot? And I wonder how many entrepreneurs and business owners actually feel that way as they're scaling and as they're building. What was it? How did you work through that? And what was it that you thought really led to that feeling?
Well, I think it's more the norm than the exception. I think we all have different words for that and different narratives to cope with it. But even I work with PJ, who helped me do my TED Talk, and she used to coach generals and, you know, high-level people in the U.S. side. They also had imposter syndrome. So I think we all carry a bit of that. I think by nature of going outside your comfort zone, it kind of comes with it a little bit. Not for everyone. Some people don't have it, but the way I see it play out, at least for founders, is when the pressure rise, you enter 3 emotion. So it's like the shadow of the pressure. The shadow of entrepreneurship is 3 emotional state that we have to kind of pay attention to, which is, it starts with uncertainty, then it can evolve into fear, and then it goes into what I call unworthiness. So imposter syndrome, self-worth, self-doubt, name it how you want, but it kind of goes like that. So you're suddenly not sure of your plan, then you seek relief through decision to, you know, escape uncertainty. If that doesn't work, then you seek relief through action, because you start fearing that you're going to fail, you're going to be a failure, different sorts of narrative inside of us. And then at some point, you feel the need to seek relief through proving yourself because of that unworthiness, that's imposter syndrome. And when I made my exit, to me, that happened both when I was under pressure and then when I was very successful, because I thought I'd made my money too fast. I wanted to have a positive impact on the world. I wanted to do it by teaching entrepreneurship. And I felt like an imposter because I made it too fast, essentially. And so I wanted to prove myself again. So I took more risk. It distorted my judgment in some situations. And I learned it the hard way to really monitor these 3 emotions.
Wow, that's very transparent. And I know that can help entrepreneurs out there. Now, your most notable venture, and excuse me if I pronounce this incorrectly, was Neobex Medical. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly.
And you scaled this business to 70 million in revenue before
Yeah.
you exited in 2021. You start Neobex Medical in 2018. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So I was doing it part-time. I was in pharmaceutical sales. One physician that was one of my customer at the time was very business minded, and we became friends. And so he said, "Hey, Phil, I'm doing care in a local elderly center, and I brought in a few of my friends who are an accountant and a physical therapist, and we're kind of helping them with their purchasing. I think there might be a business model there. Would you kind of join us and help us structure and build that?" So that's how this company started. It was called EMD2 at the time, and we were essentially a service-based company where we were centralizing purchases for small health centers that didn't have enough volume to be an actual account for a big distributor. And so they were getting ripped off. And so we were cutting their invoice by about 50%.
Wow.
And having a split of the saving as our revenue model. So it was going well. Within a year, we grew from nothing to a couple $100,000 of revenue. And we were just about to onboard salespeople and go and kind of bring the model outside the local scope of our region. But then COVID hit, and all of a sudden we were put on allocation. We couldn't order more than the average of the last 12 months. So all the growth we had built had to be cut, and we would have been in the red for however long COVID was about to last. And so I decided we had to make a choice. Either we shut it down or we pivot. Long story short, I decided to try to pivot, went into chemical nitrile gloves, learn how to import during COVID, learn how to sell to the government during COVID. I was able to negotiate a down payment, which helped me. And with that down payment, I was able to successfully do a first order, build trust, got invited on public invite tender, then won Sacramento County in California, big buying group like Health Pro. And eventually I had I was selling in Africa, Mexico, US, Canada, and we were expanding essentially.
Wow, that's incredible. So from 2018 to 2021, 70 million in revenue.
Yeah, and the 70 million happened super fast. It happened within the span of 8 months, more or less, the big ramp up. Then it was, we still made money until the market crashed. But yeah, there's many stories there. But the pivot is really what led to the big scale up.
Wow, that's absolutely incredible. I mean, growing that fast and building a business that successful, that is there's a lot of lessons to unpack in there. That's a full triple college education, PhD in 36 months, right? That's so much to learn. What is the number one takeaway that you took from scaling from 2018 to 2021, doing 70 million in 8 months? What's the number one takeaway you took from that?
And there's so many, but I'll share a few. But the main one, I think, from a revenue standpoint, is that pivoting is a crucial step in building a venture often, right? But pivoting is done without certainty. So it's an intuition skill. And I think I successfully done it twice in my career, one for a tech company that I had invested in, and the other one for this first company that gave me my wings. And in both scenarios, yes, you have to use data and logic, but it's mostly an intuitive attunement play where you are aimlessly courageous, you explore hypotheses, and then you see at some point. But you have to walk that path of not knowing where you're going for a while. And that is very uncomfortable because you're in chaos. You don't have any solid ground to step on.
I love that. I'm a big hockey guy, and one of my favorite players, Wayne Gretzky, he says, you have to go where the puck is going, not where the puck has been, right? And so when I hear pivot, part of what you're anticipating, part of what you're putting together, part of the play that you're making is you're going to where the action is. You're making a decision based on gut, based on experience, based on data, based on a lot of different things, and you're saying, this is where I think the market is going to go. I'm going to make this pivot. I'm going to make this change. I hope I'm going to the right place.
Yeah.
And when you end up there, for some, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but you put all of those things together. And for you, it was a big win. It was a big pot of gold that you were able to hit to get you there. So you go through that process, and congratulations on everything that you've done. I mean, it's incredible. I don't know that I've ever had anybody on the show who's gone from 0 to 70 million in 36 months. So absolutely incredible there. So you exit the business. It's 2021. And at that point you say, hey, I feel like I've made my money too fast. I've gone into, I'm kind of going through this mental feeling and all this stuff that you're having. And then you go into your second venture. Talk to us about the second venture and what that looked like.
Yes. Also, one thing that didn't help on the imposter syndrome is that as soon as we had scaled that business and we had delivered the first chunk of $70 million worth of contract, we immediately had a founder conflict. And it was mostly me on the receiving end, because for 2 years, it was mostly me and the accountant building the company on a profit splitting agreement to make it fair, because everybody had kind of the same amount of shares in the company. And because of that, I was entitled to a bit more money. And so I was attacked by my partner, one of my partner, who wasn't in the operation for a good year and a half at this point. And that, made my imposter syndrome a bit more loud, right? And so when I decided it was finally time for me to step out of that and sell the rest of my shares, then I wanted to do another big home run to prove that, it wasn't just a lucky shot. It was actually something I worked hard for. And so I became an investor. I became a serial entrepreneur. I overextended myself into many different ventures. I had a real estate company in Thailand, a mushroom company that we were supposed to build substrate to do IoT devices, a bunch of different companies all over the world. And I was the bottleneck for business growth and all of them, because that was my strength. And so when I discovered this technology company in advanced material, I really fell in love with it, because not only was it potentially big, but it was also a force for good. You were eliminating PM 2.5, which is the invisible side of a pollutant that really kills you. You can see the smog, which is a particulate, but the gaseous part that kills you, you can't see it. And that technology could eliminate that.
Wow.
So for in-house air quality, but also for pollution. So I really, really went all in while being all over the place in many ventures, advisory, and all of that. And so when that business failed, all of that pressure was just keeping piling up on top of me. And so I'm not sure if I answered your question, but that really, from imposter syndrome to the next phase of being an investor and a serial entrepreneur, that's really the reason why I went that route.
Mm-hmm.
That route. Mm-hmm.
That's something that happens to entrepreneurs. And I think it happens to, guys who are visionaries and guys who are growing, it's like, oh man, I see some of this. I can grab that. I can make money there. I can see some of this. I can grab money and make money there. I can see, and I can make money here. And when we see that, what happens is, instead of being singularly focused on one specific thing that's going to, be that rocket ship to the moon, we get so spread out that we're not good at all of the things the way that we should. And so you discovered that, and you walked through that, and you're building a business through that. And then you decide, I'm going to build Founders Compass. And I think you're looking at, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you're looking at Founders Compass through the lens of incredible success, hardships in business, battles with founders, some failing elements of business, learning your own journey, learning your own lessons, walking through this. And you took all these pieces of the puzzle that you've generated over all these years, and you've said, I can help founders, I can help entrepreneurs, I can help business owners go through the things that I'm going through and that I've been through, and the successes and the journeys that I've had. Would that be a correct articulation of what you've been through?
Yes, I think what I'm trying to build is actually a platform for founder performance. Then the core focus of it is to build founders the world doesn't break. Because if you look at the stats, the norm of entrepreneurship is failure and, frankly, depression. 71% in a latest survey, 76% said that they were struggling mentally because of their role as a founder, either depression, panic attacks, stress, burnout, anxiety. And then 81% of founders don't talk about it. So we suffer in silence, and then we break our companies. And I think it's sad. And I think it's a problem that we need to solve. And so Founders Compass builds that inner operating system that prevents a founder from breaking so that they can sustain decision quality when the pressure rises and keep momentum in their business. So there's a lot there to unpack, and a lot of concept that I discovered through my journey and through the people that I've been around, the other founders that I've met. And I think it's important because a lot of founder psychology comes from labs. And just like you don't know what really it is to be a parent if you haven't had a child yourself, or I would assume going to war, you
Yeah.
can have an idea of what it is, but if you haven't felt it, it's not the same level of understanding. So I think I'm well positioned, having massive success and massive failures, to kind of get a good grasp of that psychology and make it my cause.
I love that. I love that. The truth is, if we look at the statistics from the SBA, and I haven't looked at them in 2026, but if I look at what 2025 says, 75% of businesses are gone after 15 years. Only 1% of businesses make it to 25, and businesses that go to 100 years are 0.5%. So there's a whole lot more success. 50% of founders, businesses, entrepreneurs are successful when they've made it to that 25-year mark. And what you're saying is that 76% of business owners, of founders, of operators, they're fighting depression. They're struggling internally. They've got panic, they've got stress, they've got anxiety, and 81% don't even talk about it. They don't even share. They don't do anything.
Yeah.
And you're building a business that's really focused on building business owners, building founders, building entrepreneurs that don't break. I love that mission. I think that's an incredible mission. Would you share some of the pillars of that business? I mean, what are some of the key foundational components that one must ascertain through this program to not break? I love this idea of not breaking. I think it's just incredible, so powerful. How are you helping them achieve that? If you don't mind unpacking that a little bit.
Sure. The insight came from my second successful pivot, that air purification company. We were struggling to find product market fit because it was just after COVID. People were updating standards. And then when I pivoted it to a component, then we had a huge letter of intent for 100 plus million, and then dozens of requests for leads. We thought we were at the finish line, but then everything stopped because my technical partners, the inventors of our patent, burnt out and quit. And so that was a huge awakening for me, because I thought I was an imposter teaching entrepreneurship because I didn't master enough aspects of business. While the truth is, entrepreneurship is happening on two planes: the business game and the founder journey. And the business game has its own rules and milestone, but so does the founder journey. You have inner gates, you have an operating system that you need to build so you can show up under pressure with calm, clarify what's happening behind the decision you want to make, and commit to a proactive one versus a reactive one. So a lot of what I do is about understanding your decision-making patterns, how you react when you enter the shadow of uncertainty, fear, and unworthiness, and how do you actually stop pattern interrupt being reactive in your decision-making so that you don't, so that you stay proactive in your decision. Because in a nutshell, how founders break is not because they're weak, it's because they're tough. And so it's like a curse of being a founder, because eventually I also broke, and I can get into that story later. But the way a founder breaks is that they enter the shadow inevitably. There's no exoneration from that. You just need to know, see it, and navigate it. But then as you enter that, you can tough it out for a long time. You can be uncertain, you can be fearful, you can be unworthy for years. We're a tough breed.
Yeah.
But people around us, they don't share that hunger and grit. And it's a team sport to be a founder. So you have your co-founders that have a different threshold of pressure management, shadow resistance, if you will. You have your investors, if you've raised capital. You have your key stakeholders, your employees, and they will see you become reactive, that will trigger their own shadows, and they will break first. Key employees will leave, co-founders will enter fight or flight mode, their co-founder conflict arise, things like that. And that creates what I call the pressure cascade. The founder enters the shadows, becomes reactive, affects key stakeholder, they fight or flight, or they leave. And then when they do leave, for example, the pressure comes back on the founder, but it doesn't come back incrementally. It comes back exponentially. And that's why they break, because not only do they have to hold the burden of the weight that this stakeholder was holding for them, but they also lose the stability that the relationship was providing conceptually. A good example, because it's a lot of words. So let's say you have a business and you hire your first star salesperson. Well, that star salesperson does sales. So there's a process that you offload to them, a real, stability that comes from that. If it feels like you're changing your mind all the time and you're stuck in motion and you're losing momentum, he might accept an offer from a different company. And when he leaves, it doesn't just give you back the weight of making the sales, but he also gives you back the exponential burden of losing the hope that came with the fact that you thought that star salesperson was going to bring you that $5 million deal that would, make the big difference in your company. So it's 2 times harder. And when too much of them happen at the same time and you get unlucky, there's luck and misfortune in being a business owner, then you don't see your limit coming. You just exponentially go beyond that. And that's when they actually break. So it's their toughness that backfires on them.
I think I think you put that very, very well. Key employees, whether it's sales or operations or finance, they see you becoming reactive. You're dealing with your shadows, your disappointments, the things that you've got to deal with. They leave. When they leave, now that pressure comes on you, but it's tenfold. It's not one time or two time, because now you're carrying all their weight, but you're also carrying the disappointment of the loss through that exit. And then
that's well said. The strategic
leads
burden
to the break. They break. I understand that, and I can see that. And I don't know, after hundreds of these shows, I don't know if I've ever heard anybody explain it so well, because that's actually what happens. I think that is actually truly where this thing falls apart, where it really breaks them. Now, let's say that I'm the broken guy, and we're going through this process. What is Founders Compass doing? What are you doing? Hey, you've recognized me. You're like, I found this guy Dave. He's completely crushed. Everybody left him. He's in a corner by himself. He may be sucking his thumb. I don't know what's going on, but this guy is broken. What do you do? How do you help the founder? How do you help that person get back on their horse, rebuild, get that confidence back, and put the systems and processes in place that they need to be successful?
Yeah. So it's a fine line. That's why I frame it as founder performance and not therapy, because we don't do therapy. So once you're broken, maybe you need to, get some therapy. There's multiple solutions, and I can share my stories of how I got back there. But what I'm most interested in and how Founders Compass help founders is they prevent that breakdown from happening by helping them build an inner operating system. So what it means is that I think you need 36 skills as a founder to really be sustain performance across the different cycles of transformation that your business will ask of you. And a lot of that has to do with shadow management, but some of it has also to do with decision quality, intuitive attunement, and performance from a sense of entrepreneurial grit, having cycles of recovery and renewal, adaptive intelligence versus blind perseverance, and communicating so that you can create alignment in your team. So it's a series of skills. It's not mindset. And I think the biggest problem that we are solving uniquely is that right now, what is helping founders is really packaged in 2 worlds. It's either the self-development world, the psychology world, the therapy world, or it's the business advice. And so the uniqueness of the founder journey, it's both a hero personal journey and it's both a business game. So solution must be at the crossroad of both. What you do needs to lead to more efficiency, and better decision and sustained performance. It cannot just be, I'm enlightened, but then I don't do anything about the fires around me and the pressure of my business. You can be enlightened in your home, in your cave, but you have a business to run, right? And just as if you go from one business advice to the other, but then fundamentally your problem is you're uncertain. Well, uncertainty is not a business problem; it's a founder problem. It's a human feeling. So you're gonna seek business answer to something that often just requires stillness and not make a decision. And so that disconnect between these two lines of help is why there's no real solution. There's just patchwork. I'm feeling stressed. I'm going to meditate. I'm feeling uncertain. I'm going to ask for advice. So we're trying to bridge that with a system in between where you have a protocol in place. When you feel the shadow, you know what it does in you, you know what to do. When you have a decision to make, you don't have to ask a billion advisor or watch a million YouTube show. You have a decision quality scorecard. You can kind of trust yourself. And when there's not enough data, or when you have a lot of pressure to be under the tyranny of data, like most C-level executives do nowadays, you can have an intuitive attunement and not hit being a careless bet. You can have risk sizing. Like risk sizing to me is an intuition skill. Strategic thinking. These kinds of skill falls into what sustain founder performance. So that's the overall mission. Right now, we're focusing on Unbreakable Founder as a system. And so that's more around making sure the pressure cascade doesn't affect your team and making sure that you stay calm, committed, and you can clarify and commit to your decisions.
It sounds really good. So I just want to make sure I got the three phases and correct me if I got this wrong. I look to, I'm learning a lot for you while I'm on the show. That's what I love about the show. I get to learn, right? It's a wonderful thing. But you're breaking this down in it. So what you've said is there's like 36 skills that an entrepreneur really has to have to be successful. And you're breaking it down into three basically phases where you've talked about, and correct me if I got these right or wrong. Personal development is kind of one area, and then where we've got another area is basically psychological issues, therapy, just the psychology of running the business, and then we've got the business itself. Did I get those three correct, or did I miss one in there?
I mixed up a few things. So like the 36 skill to me, they're across 4 dimensions: emotional mastery, decision mastery, intuition mastery, and then performance mastery, but not performance from a sense of vitality, grit, and vision communication. So like leadership skill. So it's a different kind of performance, not a business type performance. But then, when I think about a founder and the planes of the business game and the founder journey, I call that the waterline method. And the waterline method says that above the waterline is your business. At the waterline is your strategic decisions. Just under that is where the 36 skill live that you have to mobilize to be performant as a founder. And in the deep water is the human layer. And you have to have some form of self-awareness across all of these layers so that you can sustain the pressure. So ultimately, a perfect founder for me would be a founder that has an alignment from the human side of him all the way to the business. And so he can stabilize in chaos. But, that's my vision, my creative vision. And now I'm chunking it into one program. So that's the most core program that founders needs to start with, because it's a lot, right? So
I think you're right on. I mean, I 100% agree with what you've been doing. I mean, look at, man, I've been doing this entrepreneurial thing for, over 2 decades. And I've spoken with thousands of entrepreneurs. I've had thousands of employees, built many different businesses. I've watched businesses succeed. I've watched businesses fail. I've been through a lot of these emotional ups and downs that you're talking about. And to be honest, I think you're spot on. I mean, I think what you're building here is something that's super important. And rarely do I ever speak with somebody who has the insight into what it takes to build those sections and those degrees of performance. And I think you've really nailed something here. I think you've got something that's really on point. I love what you said. I mean, I love what you said about, hey, a founder gets into trouble, they start looking for advice. Founder gets into trouble, they go and meditate. They're looking for a mechanism to help them get through the next place. But what you're talking about is developing the skills and the strategies to deal with these on your own. And I love what you said about this decision quality scorecard, right? Like you've put this together and you've said, hey, how can I really treat myself? How can I be the doctor in my own house, right? How can I fix myself so that I'm not broken? And you've built that through. You've extrapolated out all the pains that you've been to. You've extrapolated all the wins, and you've taken that and you've synthesized it down, and you've built a program that helps entrepreneurs, on some level, find themselves, right? Yeah. And find basically a cure to I'll call it the entrepreneurial disease, right? On some level, right? Like you're helping to cure that problem. So as someone's going through this, how long does it take to go through this program? What does the program look like?
So if I wanted to have someone go through everything, it would take about a year.
Okay.
So yeah, it's like 4 modules. Right now, it's a kind of a new company, so I'm at the point where I'm testing an offer format, and I've been spoken to founders in the last few months quite a bit about that and playing with it. The way I'm simplifying it is we have a 7-week program that we're launching that goes into how to be an unbreakable founder. So that would be like module 1 of the 4 module, if you really wanted to upgrade your skill. But the whole program, it's a year. It does take a year, but you can do it while you're building your business. It would be better, right? Because there's real integration at that point.
I love that. So 7-week program, how much time goes into it every week?
It's about 2 hours. So it's like a 90-minute session. So the way I'm thinking about that program is they are fundamental knowledge and skills that you need to have in order to be unbreakable. So you need to understand the shadow. You need to understand what it does to you, your shadow operating script, the counter script that you can mobilize, like the protocol. So it's really an implementation program. You gain some awareness, but you immediately implement a protocol so that you yourself won't go into reactivity. That's the first thing we want. The outcome for a founder is they will be calm, they will clarify, and they will commit before making a decision. So that's how you help the founder. But then you also need a system for the team. So we integrate a little weekly survey, which I call the pressure pulse check. So every key decision maker, your key stakeholders, like you can't do that with your investors, but your key stakeholders in your organization, you just ask them every week a few questions, the same question, and then it gives you a report saying, is your team in the fog, like uncertain? Is your team under heat, fearful, or static, like unworthy? Like the underlying enemy right now, the brand of pressure that is affecting your leaders, and you have a meeting protocol. So we work with the founder to say, okay, well, if the uncertainty, the fog is high, well then you can't just go on with your week. You need to readdress, here's the priority, here's why we're doing it, and so you have to have that level of clarity beforehand, because that's how you maintain alignment with your team. So it takes like 10 minutes a week, but it actually builds momentum instead of having a bunch of people not knowing what they're doing, why they're doing, why they're important, and you pay your mistakes so long in business. That's also surprised me quite a bit. Sometimes you do a mistake and it often takes months for you to go back to the baseline. So preventing these mistakes and just keeping that momentum going, it's no longer just a matter of the founder, it's the whole team that has to make it important.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I love that weekly survey, and I love what you're talking about here. If they're in the fog, if they're in their heat, they're getting too much. If they're static, they're staying put. If they're staying put and they're not doing anything, they're dying, right? So I think that's pretty cool. So for anybody out there who's listening and they're going through this, and look, the truth is that these entrepreneurs, these founders, these CEOs, these business leaders, and I say these because like I'm one of these guys, right? Like the truth is that 76% of the people listening to this call, and over 3 million people have listened to this show in the last 12 months, is 76% are going through this today.
Yeah.
76% are going through it, and 81% aren't talking about it. 81% are basically, living in these shadows, and I think what you're talking about here is freedom. That's what I hear. That you're offering entrepreneurs a path for freedom. And I don't know if you can put a cost to that. I think that is something that is on some level priceless, but people also have to be able to afford it, right? At the end of the day, but having breakthrough and having freedom, I think is really really important as a founder. And I think that when you don't have that freedom, not only does it deteriorate your business life, but it deteriorates your family life, it deteriorates
Oh
your
yeah.
personal relationships, and it deteriorates your health. And when you're completely broken, you're not just broken in business, you're
Yeah.
broken in every one of these categories. And the past CEO of Coca-Cola said you have to take life as a series of balls. And work is a rubber ball. You can bounce it; it always comes back, right? You can put
Yeah.
more into it, take more away from it. But your family, your marriage, your kids, your health, these are glass balls. If you break them, they shatter. They never come back. You never get to
Mm,
put them back
yeah.
together. And so when a founder goes through this, they're losing everything. They may not feel like they're losing it, but that's what happens when you're at that bottom sub-zero game, right? That's where you're at.
Yeah.
So I guess my next question is, talk to me about the shadows. What are some of the shadows? Break the shadow down for me, because I'd love to understand where that shadow lives, or what are examples of the shadow, and maybe how you fight through that.
Yeah. Well, and it gave me goosebumps when you said, it's glass ball and it breaks, because to me that was the most painful part of it. And it also fed my shadow because, when I pivoted my business, my daughter was just born. I have three children. She's the youngest. And I mean, I was so stressed, worked out of my mind. I took a good, I think 70 pounds since 2020, just out of the stress, and I just kept it.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, so it really affects outside your life. And the most painful thing for me when I was breaking was the things that I would rob my children from, you know, uh, uh, for, and to understand that. So when I sold my business, it was a two-part exit. I got a few millions up front, which, humbly is great, but also most of it was when we sold the inventory that we had, and we had a partnership. So that was supposed to happen. Um, and then Okay, I'm gonna try to make it answer your question, but also I want to kind of tell you the story so that it also shows how the shadow happens. My tech company, that was in 2023 when I lost my two partners when they burnt out. The truth is, we had been in the shadows without having a name for it for many, many months. We were becoming very reactive. We were stressed. Every decision was so uncertain. We were jumping from one idea to the other way too fast, and people were reacting the way they individually react. Some were withdrawing, hiding, other were erupting into little conflicts. Um, and that was also the founder conflict that happened in my first business. It was a symptom of shadow. We all have our wordiness script, and it clashed, and then we never got to the bottom of it. But then, okay, so when they left, I had all the pressure to restructure the company fall back on my shoulders like the pressure cascade. And so I was in fear mode a lot. I was just working like most founders do when they're under pressure. They overly become an achiever. They hustle. They try to push their way, outwork their pain essentially. And so I've done that from April to November. And at that point, I was super drained. But I finished restructuring the company. We had a new CEO that was technical. We had partnership. We were about to ship samples, and it was it seemed like I was out of that season, but I was really drained. And then I got a phone call from my former partner saying, "Hey, Phil, not only have we not sold the inventory, but when it was in the transition warehouse, the warehouse burned and I forgot to insure." And so
Oh,
on that
wow.
day, not I broke because when I tell you about the conceptual stability that you lose, well, that was part of it. Like I was conceptualizing my risk based on having these millions coming over in a few months or whatever. And then I was conceptualizing myself through the level of wealth I had accumulated at that point. But then I took a huge downturn. Um, Not only the tech company had kind of failed, and then this was failing. And so my shadow narrative was I failed as a father. My kids, I grew up poor, and I was thinking, oh, my kids aren't going to be able to go to great school, maybe Harvard someday. No, they're not. I won't be able to afford that probably. And all of these hits uh, were fueling these narratives of unworthiness and becoming fearful that this would happen. Um, and so these are examples of how I lived the shadow. I can explain it more as a general concept and how that could be helpful for listeners. But I would like to say that in that shadow, I found my first three gifts. The first gift of my inner operating system that I finally got to see. And the first one was permission, permission to let the world burn. So and to me, that's how I frame it, because my warehouse was on fire. But really, when we are in the shadow, we become reactive. Like I said earlier, we either seek relief through decision, action, or proving ourselves. And for me, I was jumping from one urgency to the other. But in that broken moment, I wasn't able to react anymore. So I had to let the world burn for a while. I couldn't handle the stress anymore. I was depressed. And so because of that, I could let growth and all the pressure burn around me. And that allowed me to get my second treasure, which was my intuition. Because it's hard to really understand your intuition when you're just reacting to the pressure, the fires, the growth, because growth shout and intuition whisper. And so a it's a paradoxal. I don't know, the French is coming out, but
Yeah.
it's a you know it's counterintuitive, because you have to shut down the urgency of growth if you really want to grow at some point, because some of growth happens in transformation, not a linear path. And so that intuition came as a whisper. It told me to find my third treasure, which was anchoring. So I was compelled to just one thing, not become more, just take my kids on a trip to Cancun and be a father in the present moment. And that trip became my anchor. And at that point, I stopped sinking and I started recovering. And then I spent the whole next year exploring different scenarios and understanding the deep rooted psychology of my wins and my failure, and why my skills were so powerful at some point and other time they were working against me, and why momentum was not as stable as it could. And so that led to the understanding of the shadow, that led to the frameworks and the skills that I eventually built that company with. But I'll pause there because I said a lot. Feel free to ask me clarifying questions if I was not
No,
clear.
no, you did outstanding. You did outstanding. I mean, I love what you said. I mean, I think so many people go through this, right? Like, oh my God. I mean, I can just see it happening, right? We've got this, you know, this program we're selling, we've got this plan, we don't insure something, it burns down, we lose everything. I mean, how many times does a little mistake like that kill a entrepreneur, hurt an entrepreneur? And then, you feel like, oh man, it broke me. That was my breaking point. And you said, hey man, I grew up poor. I didn't grow up with all of these things that everybody else might have. And then it was, man, I failed as a father, and will my kids be able to go to Harvard, or maybe not, maybe, but like, there's more than just the feeling of the business. But I love how you took that to, you gave the world, you gave permission to let the world burn. Like, at
Yeah,
some point it was just, I've done all I can. I have to surrender. I mean, I think you're talking about some serious surrender there, right? Where it's just, it's going to happen. I can't control it. And there's some freedom in that, right? And then that gave you the second gift, which was, the whisper that you hear, your intuition, right? Allowing it to
yeah,
really come alive and really speak. And then the anchor, right? Where you were able to
yeah,
stop sinking and you could start rising, and you went through these different phases. And now that you've gone through these phases, you've built a program that's very powerful, that I really believe in. Founder's Compass. I mean, I've only known you for a short time, but Founder's Compass, with what you've been through, and what you have shared, and just the emotions and the transparency and the honesty, and the level in which you've put this together, man, it's incredible, because so many, I can just see countless entrepreneurs falling through this system. I can see countless entrepreneurs I've watched. I can even see myself walking through, these particular items, right? Like, probably over and over again. Hey man, where were you 20 years ago, by the way? But at the end of the day, like, it's really powerful, what you've built. I'm really impressed with everything that you've put together. So if somebody wants to go through this 7-week program, is there a cost for this thing yet, or has that not been developed?
well, the funding cohort is $2,000. I'm trying to make it accessible and cohort based, because I want to help as many people as I can. I want this system to become the norm. So I have to charge for it, because otherwise I won't be able to grow it. But 2,000 7 week. It includes the team implementation, and it includes all the material of that part of the operating system. And then it's going to increase in price. That's the founding cohort member pricing.
Yep.
But if we can keep it at that price, we will. But this is really a special treatment for the first 12 people.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a super reasonable price, man. I mean, I think that's, I think every single person listening to this show should sign up for it. I mean, no matter where you're at, like walking through this for 7 weeks, 90 minutes, a week, 30 minutes, of time, 2 hours, every single week to learn and walk through this. I mean, I think continued education and leadership. So I believe that there's some job description items that every CEO has, every founder has, every entrepreneur has. And I believe there's, really 5 job descriptions elements for every CEO. And I believe that one of those elements is personal development. I believe every leader has to be personally developing themselves every single year, no matter what stage you're at. You have to take time out of your business to grow yourself. You have to continue to level up. And I think, what you've talked about here, what we've been through for the last hour, has been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I can't think of a CEO that shouldn't go through this program. I don't care if they're doing 100 million or a million, right? Like this is they need to walk through this. They need to identify 76% of us are depressed. 81% won't talk about the problem, so walking through this, for $2,000, it's like, man, everybody out here needs to just jump on this and shine up. And I mean, I think just, wow, what an amazing opportunity, for them to really change their life and to really, change who they are as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a father, as a leader, as a husband, as all the things that you want to be in entrepreneurship. Walking through this is just super impressive. And I think, I'm just a believer, man, in what you've built. And I think it's because of the transparency you've shared and just the stories and the real life. And, you're so real with everything you've been through, right? Like, it's like, hey, man, here's where I've been and here's the misses along the way. And here's the learning and here's how we can grow together. And I love the cohort mentality. So I'm so impressed. What on, where are you at on social media? Are you on LinkedIn? Are you on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok? Where are you guys hanging out?
I'm mostly on LinkedIn. I'm trying to be elsewhere, but I've been very active on LinkedIn. I've been a bit less lately, but I want to pick it up in 2026. But if you go on LinkedIn, if you go on my personal website, philneal.com or founderscompass.com, this is where you're going to get most of the info.
All right. If you're out there, give them a follow, give them a like, hook it up, and listen, do yourself a favor, sign up for this thing. It's absolutely incredible. Listen, Phil, I got one last question for you before we bring this thing in for a landing, and it's been an absolutely incredible show here today. We've got a big billboard. We've got a whiteboard on the side of the road, and everybody can see it as they drive by. What's one sentence, one phrase, one word that you want to share with the world today?
When founders break, businesses follow. So start looking under the hood at the founder journey and stop obsessing about the business readiness.
When businesses break, founders...
when founders break, businesses follow.
When founders break. I'm going to write that down. I got to take my own notes from you, man. When founders...
You're an amazing listener. I got to tell you, I'm very impressed. I can't believe you follow my rant.
Well, you know what, man? I'm learning from you, man. I'm learning from you, and I'm honored to have you on the show. When founders break, businesses follow. I mean, I think that is I think that is so true. I mean, I don't know if you can see the screen, but I mean, I got 2 pages of notes here. I got them scribbled all over the place. I'm gonna have to go sit down and think about our conversation for a couple hours. I mean, you've been off the charts here, man. It's just been absolutely incredible. This has been the Entrepreneurial Journey. I'm your host, Dave Westcott. We are back 9:15 a.m. Pacific Standard Time every single Tuesday. Leave your comments in the comment box. Drop a like, drop a share if you like this show. And listen, do yourself a favor. Check out my new brother, Phil Neal, and the founder's compass, because I got to tell you, everything we've been through today is just absolutely incredible. You will not be shortchanging yourself. That'll probably be the best $2,000 you've ever spent. And I'd get in there before he raises the price, because I know he will, because it's very, very valuable. Phil, this has been absolutely incredible spending this time with you. I'm so appreciative to have you on the show. Thank you very much. Any final words that you want to share with me or the audiences before we bring this thing in for a final close?
Well, I appreciate you, and I appreciate the audience. And I would say, like, one advice I give is, when growth shout, trust your whisper, and really attune with yourself.
I love it. That's fantastic. Phil, thank you very much for being on the show, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Every CEO's journey has its Everest. The moments when the path forward feels steep, uncertain, and alone. With Sherpa CEO coaching, you don't climb alone. Our experienced coaches are your guides, helping you break through barriers, sharpen your strategy, strengthen your leadership, and build a team that can carry you higher. With tailored one-on-one coaching, strategic planning, and real accountability, your summit is within reach. Sherpa CEO Coaching, your guide to confidence, clarity, and extraordinary business growth. Get coached and learn more at sherpaceo.com.